Yeah.
That's
a deal.
I don't know who all. Call him. I hope that'll work out.
Yeah, Tuesday. Okay. It's a long break.
Was it? Let's see.
I was thinking as I was reaching.
Between you and John, you have
Green River. I went back for a couple weeks to work. They're doing
Think that when you have it, losing that one.
Probably good money.
Yeah.
So
Totally unexpected.
Grandpa is not supposed to
Let's get together.
It was huge. It was huge. The whole church was.
Vicki, I tried not to get that too far.
Yeah.
Call to order.
Hello.
Meeting of Board of Trustees with LCCC. First thing I believe we'd like to do is work with the minutes. And could I have a motion to approve the minutes for November 12th?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been moved and seconded by Bill and seconded by Don. Any corrections or adjustments? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes as presented for November 12th, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion for the minutes to be approved is passed. How about for the December 3rd? Is there a motion to approve those?
I so moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Trustee Merrill has approved or moved and Brad seconded. Any corrections or adjustments? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
I think it's.
Motion carries. Minutes have been approved. We're to the very exciting part at this point, I think, with regards to reports to the board. And tonight we'd like to start with SGA, and if you'd introduce yourself.
Hi. Hi everyone, Bill Dallas, currently the new president of SGA, and thank you for having me here today. Mr. Chair and members of the board, currently we just started off the new semester, had our first meeting yesterday actually during lunch, and then tomorrow we will be meeting with President Schaefer to discuss some things, as well as in February we will begin to meet with the other clubs and organizations to determine SPAC related funds that they will be awarded, that kind of thing. Any questions?
Any questions for Bill?
Hey, Bill, Trustee Little, what kind of turnout did you have at your first meeting? Good turnout?
Oh, yep, good turnout. Everyone showed up. Every member that we had showed up, and it was good.
Good.
Yep.
To follow on that, how many senators do you have?
Senators. I'm trying to think. I think we are currently at 14, I believe. Is that? Yeah, 14. But I'll double check on that and get back to you next meeting to make sure I have the correct number.
And you're starting your process for the
SPAC
approval of
funds in February. Yep. We will be meeting with the different the clubs for them to present in front of us the based on a rank of like community service and that kind of thing, determining how much of the funds they will be allocated.
Appreciate your report. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, just to follow on that, you may recall almost 2 years ago, members of the Student Government Association and the SVAC committee, the Student Fee Allocation Committee, really took a look at their process and how that worked, and tried to add some stronger objectivity and review and debate opportunities for students and how they allocated that. It was the first time that you saw their memorandum and allocation actually included as an addendum to your budget, the annual operating budget. It was really there so you could see how that was working. One of the recommendations that they had at that time, and have carried that through this year, was that there were certain activities that were funded predominantly from student activity fees that were really tied more towards college operations, where we hire faculty or staff to serve in a certain capacity for student groups and activities. And the ones that we typically think of are the show team, the various ag teams, ranch horse team, horse judging, livestock judging, but even ones like some of our musical programs and ensembles. And what the students told us at that time, they said, we love these, we think these are great activities and programs, but they really are a function of the college's sponsored extracurricular, co-curricular activities. And the students didn't feel that they should be bearing the burden for covering all of that expense. And they asked that those be considered in the operating funds. So one of the things you'll see as we put together the budget for next year is we're trying to fold those expenses into the college's general fund, and not putting the burden on the student fee committee funds to actually fund those. And so it's a big shift, and certainly it creates opportunities for how students may want to use those funds, but it's something that we'll have to work on adjusting in our operating budget. But we listened to the students and we heard them, and it is appropriate that we look at those functions, and we put those as part of our general fund operating budget, and not simply rely on student fees to fund those, because they are central to the educational mission of the college. So, did I get that right, Bill?
Yep.
Good. Yep, for sure.
For example, one of those would well be forensics, right?
Sir, Mr. Chairman, our speech and debate team, our forensics team would be one of those as well, that live predominantly off of the allocation from student fees, but as a core element of our educational programming. We have staff that actually have faculty that have assignments for that. That will be one of those that we'll look at funding the operating expenses out of our general fund, not student fee funds. Not that it doesn't mean they can't request student fees, there's opportunities for that, but it's not going to be that basic expectation, because that's something the college has committed to offering. We want to offer it, and if we're committed to it, we want to offer it, and we actually have that integrated into our staffing structure, we should be bearing the burden of its operating expenses. But always there's teams that make it to national championships, special opportunities and things like that, and I anticipate they will still go to the students to ask for assistance for those trips. But the big piece is those core operating expenses. The students felt those should be coming out of the general fund, not out of the student fee funds. Still on board, Bill? I got
Oh,
that?
yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly what I heard.
Mr. Chair, so, given 2 years ago, when those of us who were running for this office, and we talked to the students, and the students complained about the student fees, and we are now addressing some ways to reduce those student fees. My question, what percentage do you anticipate might be reduced we're in the 400s right now, $400 or something like that? Am I putting you on a spot with that type of question? And if it is, just tell me, because I'm curious as to how much gain the students will receive as a result of this.
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Erickson, I was going to use a Dr. Walt Nolte response to that, in which he says that 17% of all presidents think they know statistics, 88% of them make up statistics, and I'm making up those statistics right now. I don't know ultimately what the percentages will be.
But it will be a reduction.
Well, it will free up student fee dollars. How they decide to, and how we actually look at using those, I think, is a conversation that will ultimately still yet to have. So an option could be that they say we could reduce what we assess for the student fee, student activities fee. That's a possibility. And I don't remember the number, and I don't want to put it, but I mean it's couple $100,000, I think, or $150,000.
$140 is what.
$140,000. It could be that the students decide to use those dollars for another purpose. So I think there's options on the table for those reductions or for the reallocation of those fees to accomplish other goals that the students think they need to accomplish. But that is a good opportunity for me to say that, in the last 3 years, we have not increased student fees at all. And in fact, we've actually decreased student fees. I think the only new fees that we've even added to the books have accompanied new programs. So the welding fee for that. But we've actually held the line tight on student fees and have actually reduced some of the fees by taking one off the table. And we're committed to that. It's going to be a rigorous process for us to determine whether or not we need to assess additional fees to our students.
So then, Mr. Chair, I guess the question should be maybe presented again at budget time. Because at that time, you will have probably a better understanding of how many dollars the college general fund, if I can use general fund, operating fund, will be covering some of the student fees that were not going to come forward. Or if the students decide, well, we're going to continue to be assessing ourselves what we've been assessing and use it for different purposes.
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Erickson, I would actually look to Mr. President behind the podium. I think that's the conversation they'll have to have, and I'd likely we'll be engaged in that as well, and they'll give us some guidance on how they see they may want to approach the use of those fees.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate it. And I would just ask Dr. Schaefer this in closing on that topic. I believe when we finished with the budget last time around, there was some discussion that we would try to do a better job of painting those fees so that if they come in for welding, we would be better able to identify them. I'm pretty sure we're not there yet, but we were talking about that was something in the hopper.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, with the newly added student fee policy and student fee procedure, we are implementing a process in which, through the Vice President of Administration and Finance, we go out and we ask for proposals for new fees, proposals for increased fees, or other types of adjustment to fees. And there'll be a structure in which those proposals will come forward saying what they're for, how they're assessed, what the rationale is behind them, the justification for them, what they're going to be used for, and actually create a tracking mechanism so we can illustrate and demonstrate that fees that we've assessed are going for the intended purpose, are at the appropriate level. And so I think we're just now going to be starting the first process with this budget. But going into the future, we'll have a much more objective and clear picture of student fees and how they're used, how they're assessed, and a better process to get a handle as requests come forward.
Again, I would say thank you, Bill, for your report, and you have a challenge ahead of you this spring.
Oh, yeah.
Hearing the results of that. Next report is from Staff Senate. Candy Farrell.
Yeah.
It's good to have you with us, Candy.
Thank you. In December, we had a Deck the Doors contest, and it was very successful. I think we had about 20 teams. We turned out only had one individual. The second one dropped out, but it was kind of fun. Put some holiday cheer in the campus. And we had the pre-kindergarten class from CDC was one of the judges. I think they enjoyed it. So I think we'll probably do that again next year. Also, this month we started our Unsung Heroes program, where we recognize a group of staff members on campus. And this month we recognize the custodians. We sent out, or I sent out an email to everybody. I think I went out to the distribution list, recognizing all the custodians on campus. And then we had some treats set up for them Tuesday night. So they, hopefully they enjoyed their coffee and cookies. And then we will continue that. We'll try to do a different group each month. We've also started planning our staff retreat. I think we're probably planning to do that sometime the first 2 weeks of June. And at this time, we're just looking for a venue. And we're finding there's not too many places around town to hold things like that. So, But we're starting the planning early so we can get a reservation somewhere and get some people to come in and speak. Any questions?
Do the board have any questions? Dr. Schaefer?
Yeah, more of a comment, Mr. Chairman. I just want to commend Staff Senate and Candy you specifically. Such a simple gesture, the Unsung Heroes program and then the treats, such a simple gesture. It was amazing to watch the widely distributed and not so widely distributed comment strings, recognizing the hard work of our custodial staff, and you started that gesture. And I think it's just one of the most positive programs that we've seen, and such a simple approach that we've seen come out of Staff Senate. So I just wanted to commend the Senate for what they're doing and for starting that program. I think it's wonderful, and certainly you're feeling the response from the people for being recognized.
Yeah, I had a lot of good responses from different people on campus. Thank you.
Do you,
Oops,
Candy,
sorry.
do you have some projection? How do you come up with the topics you're going to have for your retreat?
Actually, I sent out an email right after we came back from break to staff for suggestions. I haven't gotten any. So we're going to try to get some input from somebody somewhere around campus to find out, what they'd like to have for topics. What we'd like to do is have 2 speakers, have half the staff come in the morning, and then the other half would come in the afternoon. So, we can accommodate those that can't be away for a whole day, and then have a luncheon for everybody in the middle of the day. But right now we're still struggling on finding topics.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
I believe we have Faculty Senate next.
Good evening.
Leo, would you introduce yourself?
Leah Noonan, Faculty Senate President. I teach computers here at the college since '97. We meet for the first time this semester, Faculty Senate will this Friday. We already know a number of issues that we are tackling, finishing the faculty job description and specifically the advising role. We are going to be looking at our role in light of the holistic model that has been presented and how faculty will fit within that. So we appreciate that guidance so we can model ours to work with yours. We're also working on the evaluation form based on the faculty job description, promotion procedures, and workload policy. And I'm sure we'll throw a few other odds and ends in here and there. And that's what I have to tell you tonight.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for?
Mr. Chair. Leah, a few weeks back, maybe a month or so ago, I think I asked you a question about whether the Faculty Senate has any one individual or group that's looking at the progress on Complete College Wyoming.
Yes, we do. Muhammad Shakad
Okay.
is our representative from Faculty
I know
Senate.
he's the representative and he's going to be monitoring, making recommendations back to your Faculty Senate.
Mhm.
Okay, thanks.
And thank you. Did you have a question that went
No,
with it besides
that was the
Muhammad? Okay.
And you answered it.
Oh, good. Good. That's one today.
Any other questions for Leah while we got her on the hot spot up there? Thank you very much.
Oh, I do have one other thing. I'm looking forward to being at the Community College Commission. Is it next week, isn't it? As vice chair for the Wyoming Faculty Alliance. So I will see a lot of you there. Thank you.
Will you be making the report for the Faculty
I
Alliance
believe
to the
Heidi
commission?
will be able to make it, depending on how the baby is.
Glad to see you there.
Okay, thank you.
LCCCEA. And you are?
Mr. Chair and trustees, my name's Megan Kelly. I'm the LCCEA president this year. I don't have a lot to report. I just wanted to say thank you for the card from the board, and we appreciate you setting up the meet and greet with the faculty, and the staff's also looking forward to having the opportunity to meet with those of you who come to those. So I just wanted to express appreciation for that.
Any questions for Megan? Sorry. Trustee Erickson.
I'm sorry. Bill's going to say, "Wait, come on, Don." But at our meet and greet, there were a number of things that came to us. I was wondering if in any way we have reported back to the appropriate person of how we have responded to some of the comments that we received.
I don't think that
Well, if not, I think maybe we might want to consider some way in which we communicate back that we received those comments, we discuss them, and give a report back to them.
Are you suggesting a formal report or some other process?
No, I think some way to just communicate that we address some of their concerns, and we just let them know that we had discussed them.
I believe we did send a report, a response back.
If we did, we did. Okay.
Yes.
That was my question. And
Yeah. You did receive that?
No.
maybe it went to less.
I think we're talking about the wrong group.
No, we're talking about faculty. The faculty meet and greet.
Faculty Senate.
Yeah.
Leah?
Did Leah get something?
I did have a nice card from you folks.
We got a card.
But I don't
We got a card,
remember-
but not a response
but
to any
not
of the
really
comments.
information along those lines. And I apologize for having a bad memory and not thanking you also for the meet and greet, which was obviously one of the main things on my list that I missed.
Okay, that helps me. Thank you.
I would say not to speak for Leah,
Yeah.
but I think that either of us would be happy if there was some response to redistribute it. I mean, I don't think that you went to that, Leah went to that.
place to mention that.
But I don't think that, that the comments were coalesced in
No.
any way
I would not have.
that we would
Do
know
it again.
Yeah.
how to
but
pass
that's
the
with staff.
response back.
And that's to come. That's not.
That's not the same thing.
Well, yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you for clearing up the two groups, because many of the faculty people are also in the Education Association and were present.
Right.
Thanks.
So EA, the invitation to those went out through EA and through Faculty Senate, and same with the staff would go out through EA and Staff Senate. For those.
And Trustee Erickson, in regards to that, I'll double check. I thought there was something that did go out, and I'll look and see where I came apart on that. Okay, or it didn't come through. Okay,
Thank you.
we will get back to you.
All right.
Promise. The board chair shouldn't make promises, right? No. Yes.
The letter was sent to Leah Newman.
Oh, yes.
Was it an actual, permit letter? So I'll be happy to forward that.
Good.
I don't know.
So you're covered.
It went to like a hospital address. No, it went to the college.
Thank you, Rich. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You're always saving bacon there. Okay, we're through with those reports, and now we'd like to have Dr. Schaefer give us the president's report, and I'll listen intently.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So first you made a promise, then you made a lie.
I'm on a roll.
Thank you. It's good to see you. And
This is early.
levity lightens the spirit. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Just a few things that I wanted to touch base on. First, to clarify things about tomorrow night. If you didn't receive an the invitation, we are having a recognition dinner for the Lifetime Heritage recipients of the past. The LCCC Foundation is actually sponsoring this. We would love to have the trustees, ex officios there. It's going to be in private dining, the same rooms we came from, 178, 179, a fairly small informal affair. It starts tomorrow at 5 o'clock, I believe. 5:30. Thank you, Bill. And really, we'd just love to have your presence. It's an opportunity for the foundation and for the college to again celebrate the people that have been recognized with our Lifetime Heritage Award, and that will be here. The foundation is kind of running it. My guess is, Mr. Chairman, they'll ask me and possibly you to make a few comments, but nothing formal. It's just an opportunity for us to celebrate their contributions and gifts to the college and the community. So tomorrow, private dining, 178, 179 at 5:30. And we anticipate it'll probably go for a couple of hours. So hopefully you can make it.
The invitation says dinner served at 6. So I presume at 5:30 to 6 is just coming in and meeting and greeting and so on. And that's what the way the invitation reads.
That sounds appropriate. Great. A couple of other things. So you all probably have read or got to watch the State of the Union address by the president last night, which means that community colleges will yet again have a significant amount of attention. If you haven't already had questions from people around the community, my guess is you will, and they'll be asking, well, what does the America's College Promise mean for LCCC and for community colleges? And at this point, we don't know. It's an interesting position to be in, and it's one of the places that we find ourselves sometimes where we've sort of screamed and said, hey, look at us, pay attention to us for so many years, and then in comes the completion agenda and this big push, and then they start looking at us, and then they say, well, wait a minute, why aren't you doing this? And now there's another push of, hey, let's look at community colleges. So in general, I think all of us at the community colleges, certainly the National Association, and my guess is eventually the local trustees associations, will step up and say, we appreciate the concept, we like the idea, but we really need to see how it's actually going to work. And I think that's really where we're looking at right now. So when people say, is this going to be good? Is this going to be bad? Do you support it? Do you not support it? In general, what I encourage you and what I've been saying is we support the attention and the recognition that community colleges have been doing yeoman's work in regards to shaping the society and the economy of the United States. How a program like this would actually impact or benefit us, what are the other elements of legislation that may come out, free tuition for 2 years for certain students in certain programs is likely going to come with some expectations for reporting, for state contribution and match. Those are all things we have to look at. And we also have to recognize that right now the dynamics in our Congress and Senate and with the executive branch are unique, with the Republicans taking a strong hold in the House and the Senate, with President coming in here to finish his term. It'll be interesting dynamics to see how well and how effective we actually do advance legislation, especially pretty significant legislation such as been proposed. So I'll keep you apprised. I would love to hear what you're hearing on the streets from your constituents and what people think about the overall concept, and we'll see how it plays out. In general, we're pleased that folks are recognizing the work that we're doing in community colleges and that they're actually willing to talk about how they can help support us. We just want to make sure that support doesn't come with unintended consequences.
Mr. Chair, the comments that Dr. Joe just made are pretty much summarizing the statement that came out of the association, the American Association of Community Colleges. And Dr. Joe sent us a memorandum today. And fortunately, I had a chance to review that. And I think your point is well taken. It's great that we're being recognized as a significant element in the overall higher education for our young people and also for anyone who wants to have higher education. But the devil's in the details. Truly. We don't know really what's going to come forward yet. So we still have to look at it.
It'll be interesting times, no doubt about it.
And Mr. Chair, Joe, I appreciate you saying something too, because I have gotten questions, and it's mostly, I'm sure you're in favor of that, or you're in favor of that, aren't you? Or, I mean, basically asking my opinion on it, and I've said something similar to that. But I'm glad, thank you for giving me some good words to actually say it.
And if you haven't, Mr. Chairman, Trustee Little and members of the board, if you haven't had a chance to read ACC statements, and I would imagine ACCT will be publishing one soon, there's some good sound bites in there that will help you sort of have these conversations. It's a complex topic. In general, what's being proposed is not a far cry from some of the programs we've been trying to implement. Reward students for progress, help eliminate that financial need, especially for those students that don't fit within the traditional model of your 18 to 20-year-old that have Hathaway, that have some type of support. I think those things make great sense. But there's so many different questions. What are the requirements for state match? What will be the expectations if states sign on to that? What about ensuring that Pell stays fully funded? And is this going to shift money from the really truly only need-based aid program that the state of Wyoming has right now, which is your Pell Grant? Those are all things that we have to consider and really look at that perspective of funding. Many people have already argued to me that K-12 education is free to students, and we still have success issues in K-12. So how do we know that this will ultimately get us to the goal that we want? And so I think it's interesting times, and like I say, it's positive recognition, and I'm glad we're having these conversations and the recognition of the work that we're doing. But these types of proposals really need to be weighed with due diligence before we say, yep, it's something we absolutely want to do. So we appreciate the intent, and we'll see how the conversation plays out. But I'm happy to help. If you get questions that you don't feel comfortable answering in the community, please feel free to refer them to me. I'd be happy to have that conversation.
I often just say it's too soon to know.
Well, I think Trustee Little is very correct in that we say too little do we know yet about this. And I kind of find it very interesting, exciting, as has been pointed out, and yet just see the challenges. I mean, in California, I think I read just recently, it's $86 is their tuition for I think that was per year. So, that's pretty low tuition. When you look at, as Dr. Schaefer pointed out, the tuition assistance through different things that are provided in Wyoming, and then you might go to a different state where you see something quite different than that and costs higher. There's just so much variability when you look at the community colleges and how they function across the country that it's going to be very interesting as they try to dig into this, if they do.
If they do.
No, I would agree. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, a few other quick updates. Just want to let you know that I will be over in Laramie on Friday. Dr. Malm and Butch and I are going to sit down with President McGinnity, and I imagine a few folks on his staff, to have that conversation about where we're at with the project over here in UW space, and try to get an understanding of where we're going to go in terms of next step with the proposed joint project on the UW campus as well. And so President McGinnity has been gracious enough to host us up there, and looking forward to that conversation. And I will report back and let you know how that goes. Speaking of buildings, just a couple of quick updates. We're moving forward and doing quite well on the Flex Tech building. In fact, it's been really a fairly seamless and superb process. I think we've actually resolved the slight budget overrun that we had in the expected cost, and the teams have really been working well together to get that project moving. The University Student Center is posing some interesting challenges. As you know, we've been moving through design development and have brought on FCI as our contractor and a construction manager at risk role, and really taking a look at the costs of that building. And we seem to be vacillating quite a bit in terms of what we anticipate the cost per square foot would be, the cost to build, what we need to do. And I don't have a whole lot more better information to share with you, other than I'm not quite sure where we stand necessarily on that project. In general, I'm being told we'll be able to build it. It's going to be a great building, no problem. But trying to get the project design to fit the budget seems to be a moving target for us at this point. And so FCI has been examining and looking into cost saving measures. The architects are looking at options. we're looking at options internally, and I know we'll be having some meetings next week to kind of talk about these things. But that timeline on that project is quickly getting away from us, and we need to get it back on track. And so I know we're committed to it, and Vice President Hoagland is committed to it. We're going to dig in and see what we can do. But I can tell you right now that there's some moving parts in that project that I don't know how we're going to get them reconciled, but we've got good teams working on it, so I think we'll do it. And hopefully by your next meeting, I'll have much better information to present to you that it's on target. We're moving ahead with that one.
Mr. Chairman, Joe, what's causing all the fluctuations and the changes, and is there an underlying force that's going on?
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Little, I'm not sure. Certainly the volatility in the construction market right now. And as we go into the winter months, trying to estimate what the construction market will be doing as we get into building season, I think is one of the things that we're trying to get a handle on. One of the reasons you bring a construction manager at risk on is that they can work with the architect and the owner to start looking at ways you can modify the design to capture costs. They also have that tight line to the subcontractor market, which is where a lot of this can be made or broken. And so they'll eventually get to a point where they will advance what's called a guaranteed maximum price for this project. And that's what their guarantee is. And they're at risk because if it goes over that, it's their risk that they have to bear. But in looking at it, the design may be part of it, although we've scaled back the square footage. The project started, as you know, at level 2 as a $30 million project. It was 90-some thousand gross square feet. We knew that we weren't going to have $30 million, so we've scaled back some of the square footage. We've reduced it. We've tried to look for some of those economies early on, and that's what we saw for a while, the cost per square foot down, up, down. And so I don't know, and that's the thing that we're trying to get a handle on is why we've seen such a fluctuation. We know what we're told this may be able to build it for cost per square foot, and what other projects that are currently happening specifically with the school district and what they're being built per square foot. So there's just some things that we just don't understand, and I don't know if we have good answers on any of them from any angle. That's what we're going to try to get at next week.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
To what degree, given those challenges we're facing, do we have control? Because this is now shifted within construction management with the state. How much, I don't want to say power or whatever, but how much control of our project do we really have at this point as you work through this?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I've actually, to be honest, I've been very pleased with our relationship with the state. And in terms of having not only a seat at the table, but really probably the loudest voice at the table, the state has truly been representing us as an owner, and they are the owner's representative. So I would say we have a very strong voice. This project, and I think part of it's just the new relationship between the state, the college, and the architect, and now a contractor, is you got 4 people trying to dance a 2-person waltz, and we're not quite sure who's leading and exactly what we're doing. And I think that's the piece that we're kind of trying to work through at this point. But I think we have a pretty strong voice, and I think it's clear that the state wants a building that's built that meets your expectations, our expectations, and ultimately the community's expectations. It's trying to figure out how we get there is the piece we're kind of stumbling through, and whose role and responsibility is which part to get us to the point that we can say, yes, the project budget is solid and we're ready to move forward. So I think we're still trying to figure this process out as we're moving through the project. And if you remember back, boy, it's almost been a year when we talked about this, and we talked about Senate File 77 that moved some of this control from the commission to the construction management. I said, unfortunately, we're going to be the guinea pigs in this because we'll be one of the early ones that go through the entire process. And that's sort of what we're seeing. But I think everybody has goodwill and intentions and are really trying to bring a good project in. It's just we got to nail down the unknowns at this point so we can move forward with construction.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Continue with that.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick update. You received my email update last week highlighting some of the semester startup activities. And again, just for the record, I wanted to share the hard work that so many folks really put in during the in-service week. I know the faculty, especially on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, really rolled up their sleeves and dug into some wonderful assessment and curriculum work. And I was very pleased with the work of the faculty and how they dug into that. We did have a good conversation, I think, on the advising model and have a clearer path of how we're going to move forward with that. I feel very positive about that. And in general, the free time that we were able to give both the staff and the faculty to prep for classes seemed to be greatly appreciated. It was really a nice, positive start of the semester. We've brought students on. I think we're back in. That one of the things that we really struggled through this last fall was going through the drop for non-payment and this late registration stuff. And last fall we kind of went through, and some students, were dropped, and we shouldn't have dropped them. We had large numbers that were dropped, and we were scrambling to get them back in. I think in our first drop alone, we had 100 and almost 200 students who ended up dropping. This semester, we only dropped 60 students one time, and I think almost all of them got back into their classes or got resolved almost without a hiccup. And so the start of this semester, certainly compared to fall semester in terms of the work and the productivity and the things, we're really improving that. I feel I'm gracious and thankful to the campus, and I think we really started it right, and we're just going to get better at it as we move forward. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to mention that, thank all the people that were involved with the startup, because it really was a fun week. There's certainly frustrations. We still have things we need to work on, but it was nice to see us really rolling up our sleeves, digging in, and doing things that we know are going to help our students succeed at a higher rate.
Dr. Schaefer, I'll comment just a little bit on that. I was able to attend several of the activities regarding the return of faculty and staff to campus, and some other trustees were able to do so also. And I, for one, I came out for some of the assessment and program adjustments and stuff like that, along with advising and listening to the comments. I was really pleased to hear the free flow of comments regarding concerns and issues. And one of the things I'll say that really fits what I'm hoping we continue on a path of, and we've done it before here, but I just loved hearing people were talking about how it affects students. When the faculty were asking questions, it was because they were concerned about students. When advisors, student services area was looking at things, it was about students. So, the focus is on students, and I'm very happy to see that, and tremendous amount of work that was going in. I looked at some of those forms, and trust me, I've been on that side for some of you trustees who haven't, and I'm like, oh my goodness. It was very challenging work, very good in terms of what it'll do for students, I think. But the folks here, I'm just, you guys are doing tremendous work trying to put this all together in a method that will really benefit students. But it's got its bumps and bruises as we go along. So thank you for that.
No doubt about that, Mr. Chairman. One of the things I've used this analogy before with I come from a relatively large family, and we like to say we were chaotically cohesive, which means it was chaos. We tend to get together. But I tell you what, when somebody would come at one of my brothers or sister, we all rallied. And that's the one thing I can say about this campus. We are chaotically cohesive and getting better. We have our fights, and we get after each other. But I tell you what, when it comes to our students, everybody rallies behind it, and we're willing to step up and do what's best for them first. And we may go back to having our little quarrels, but nobody's going to mess with our students. And that is something that's really at the heart of this institution, that it's nice to hear that the board is really focusing on that. And it's something that I know we've all been reminded to come back and look at and say, we're here for our students, and we're going to do what's best for them, even though we may not always agree on specific approaches to it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, one other thing, I know there were folks that we've had the conversation about the different climate surveys and all that stuff at the campus and those things. We did receive the results back from our Noel Levitt's campus survey, and I think it's employee satisfaction survey. We have those raw results out right now. And College Council is forming a group that's going to actually take the raw results, the national comparators, the open-ended things, and go in and actually try to put together some analysis of those results. I'm going to encourage the executive team to have conversations, or have their deans or directors have conversations and gather feedback. And then College Council, that group will actually come forward with some recommendations of what the findings may suggest, and opportunities for us to improve in the areas that we need to improve. So I imagine we'll have more information to report and share as that group gets together and works on it, and we get a better idea of how we want to start tackling some improvement initiatives. And then the last thing, Mr. Chairman, is the legislature. And I don't know if you'd like me to update that now, or if you'd rather just have that conversation under your board reports.
Let's wait for that.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for enduring my long report. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a question, but I would like to speak.
Okay, you've been pretty comfortable.
Mr. Chairman, Dr. Schaefer, I just would like to say, well, even though I'm decrepit, I'm out in the community day in and day out in a lot of different places. And you have no idea how many people have commented to me how much they enjoyed reading 3 huge newspaper articles about the exciting things that are going on at LCCC. And I think you should know that lots of people read them and are very interested in what's happening.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
In regard to that, we got to thank Aaron Curtis for putting those articles out, because it all came from one meeting. So, yeah.
Yes. Which I think that's kind of.
Is she here?
No.
Well, you're probably going to watch. She's probably watching somewhere along the line. So,
Not only was her work appreciated, but the trustees really dug in and put in a long day for the retreat. I think to call it a retreat, we moved forward. We didn't go backwards. I think another name might be better for that. And want to thank our legal counsel for help in that presentation too, because there's a lot of things in terms of the role the board plays, what we cannot do, how we approach different things, the relationship with the press, open meetings law. All of that was very well received, and I think we all appreciated how you refined it and took it out of the legal schmiegel, if you would, got it to something we could kind of deal with. So much appreciated.
Thank you.
I'd like to move on to board policies. First reading in scholarship and waivers policy. This was brought forward back in December, and there were some adjustments on that. I believe, Carol, you had some of those comments at the time. Are there anyone want to make a motion to approve that policy 3.2?
I do
Carol?
have another correction that I want to, but I'll go ahead and make a motion to accept it, but I have one
Okay.
correction I'd like to talk about.
Okay.
I second.
So there's been a motion to approve 3.2.
I have a question. Are we not on first reading?
No, this is first reading.
So a motion to approve, is it really necessary at this point?
I retract my motion to approve and would like to make it. I guess Brenda has to retract
I
her.
retract my second.
And the chair should retract his request.
Wait for a ruling.
We did it
Withdrawing
ourselves.
her objection without a ruling.
She'll retract it. Okay. So this might be kind of, and it's hard to look at it on this, on the screen, but under A 4.0 definitions, scholarship A, when you read down here, look at that. I won't be able to find it. Thank you. High levels of academic ability, special talents, or financial need. I'd like to get rid of some of this because I don't understand it, and maybe everybody else understands it, and I just am not reading it correctly.
How much of that are you wanting to remove? And perhaps we could have Dr. Schaefer or Student Vice President Hayes speak to that.
What I'd like to remove is the third sentence down, that contribute to extra and or co-curricular activities offered by the college, potential to positively influence, and that's what it gets muddy for me right there. And then strike it through campus and then have it read community or financial aid. Where are we? Okay. Does that make any sense to anyone? repayment is made to degree/certificate seeking students demonstrating high levels of academic ability, special talents, or, and then that contribute, I don't know if we need all that, that contribute through campus community. Take all that out of it, to extra and co-curricular activities offered by the college potential to positively influence the campus community or financially. You want to just look it over and see, because that might not.
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Merrill, I hear what you're saying, and this is one of the things actually where the definitions play out more specifically are in the procedural areas. The reason those specific statements are in there is they help frame the direction in which we actually approach the financial or the scholarship programs.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we actually worked back to the definitions to say, well, what are we looking for specifically in terms of scholarshiping students and what do we expect them to do? And so it's really about pertaining the differentiation between what students may bring, either singularly or in groups. So high levels of academic ability, those are the academic approaches, special talents that contribute, that may be in our musical ensembles, it may be Keenan on the soccer field, so extracurricular, co-curriculars, potential to positively influence the campus community, opportunities for students with a certain ability or a certain affiliation on campus, such as Student Government Association, to positively influence it, the campus community, and then the financial need really addresses the need-based aid. And so I guess my only concern would be eliminating something there may remove the focus that we want to have on ensuring we have scholarship programs that fit those specific contributions.
And I'm okay with the content. I just thought it was confusing, and to me at least, the way it was written. And so if it's okay with everybody else, then I'm okay with it.
It's not confusing to me. But
It isn't to me either.
Yeah, Trustee Merrill, are you, maybe if we put that in terms of a list, it is really a list in there.
A long list.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering, does that simplify, or it would simplify the reading of it? I'm not sure it would still be appropriate if we did that.
I understand what you're saying. It was hard for me to read it and get it in context because it's such a long sentence covering many objectives. But if everyone else is okay with it, I too am.
I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it.
Works for me.
Done?
Nothing to add.
Okay, I retract my correction.
Okay.
We're retracting everything.
So if I understand correctly, you're comfortable with that, other than for that part which seemed to be.
No, I'm fine with
just-
all of it,
okay.
except that what seemed like it bogged me down and wordy, and I wasn't sure if I didn't understand it, if there would be others that might also have the same difficulty with it. And I understood what it said, it just seemed quite long.
I can appreciate that. Sometimes these do get that way.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a bit of confusion here because the title of this section for our discussion is Board Policies First Reading, but this was brought to us previously on 12th, December 3. So I guess maybe it is appropriate for us to go forward and to approve it now.
It's because we made some changes.
Okay.
We felt this really constitutes the first reading tonight.
I see. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Erickson, that's exactly correct. Trustee Merrill brought forward some corrections. You can see those in the blue and the strikeouts in the red to make the policy read better. And I think what you directed us at your last meeting was, let's bring it back for first reading. This will be the second time that you've seen those. I don't think there's anything, in fact, I know there's not anything within your policy on policies that would prohibit you from taking action on this tonight. But what you said is, let's make the edits and let's bring it back for first reading and then bring it back again for second reading. And so that's what we've put it on the agenda this way.
Thank you.
I have one question with this, and it's really more of a statement than saying I don't like it or like it, but in there, it does speak to the fact that these are tied to enrollment management goals. nothing with the policy, but my question was, where do we find our enrollment management goals?
Mr. Chairman, that is an excellent question. Somewhere in the vast recesses of many individuals' heads on this campus.
I can't go in. That's invasive. I should stay away from that.
Exist our goals. With all seriousness, I don't believe we have stated anywhere explicitly what our enrollment management goals are at the campus yet. The reason that's in there is it helps direct us to ensure that we're developing enrollment management goals. And really the reason that language is there too is to ensure that your cost discounting, your financial subsidy, your financial assistance policy is tied to the way we look at engaging and enrolling and retaining students strategically, and that's why it's there. And so I don't know that we have formalized enrollment management goals at this point. I know it's been a conversation with our learning leadership team, the LLT team, and I imagine we will have those certainly in the future, but at this point, I don't think we do. So it's there to ensure that we need to be committed and have those goals, and I would say that's a work in progress. And I don't know, Dr. Fierro or Vice President Hay, if you want to add anything to that.
I would agree, but I'm wondering if we want to direct it to the strategic plan instead of enrollment management goals. And see if we have those yet.
I think it is stated in there, or at least I interpreted it, that the strategic plan would be the guiding document for that.
We have, if I recall correctly, on our strategic enrollment procedure, we have some general goals of what is it that we look for enrollment, how classes go, and so on. So I don't know if it could be connected with that, or if we, for enrollment goals, should be placed or refined within the strategic management procedure. Either way.
It kind of comes back to me in thinking in terms of the scholarships, which Trustee Erickson and others have asked about in the past, is, what's the intent of some of the scholarships? Of course, that deals with enrollment. So if we've got some goals, I guess it would be nice if we knew what you were trying to seek. And I'm hearing you say that those are being developed. I'd simply look forward to down the road that we perhaps see something on that.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, duly noted, and I agree with that. I think one of the things that we're looking at right now is, and I would say we have some loosely defined, and that's why I'm joking, but it's true, one of our enrollment management goals is ensuring that we're removing financial costs for those with unmet financial need. One of our other goals is getting rewarding students who progress successfully. And so you see some of the new programs such as the LCCC Progress Grant and the Soaring Eagle Award come in with those. They're just not clearly stated enrollment management goals. And then we're recognizing enrollment goals that are tied to existing programs and services such as our athletic program and what we're trying to do there. But it's a good point that we need to formally articulate those and ground those within the strategic initiatives within our strategic plan and to do that. So,
okay.
Yeah, good feedback.
Any other comments on 5A, scholarship and waivers policy 3.2? If I understand correctly, our process would be that when this is on, it should be on the agenda for the first meeting in February. And at that time, we would take action and vote on it. Next is counseling and campus wellness policy 3.19. We didn't have any feedback, as I understand it. Dr. Schaefer, are there any questions that the trustees have on this policy at this point? Then this also would be placed on the agenda for the February meeting, the first February meeting, and be voted on at that time. Approval items, recommendations for approval to fill building authority position. Vice President Carol Hoagland. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, thank you, and trustees. We have tonight before you a recommendation to fill a building authority position that the term is expiring, and that would be for Mr. James Ed Harper, and his term will be expiring. He's agreed to re-up and stay up on the board. He was a former employee of LCCC, serving in the Director of Accounting position for many years. And his term, his new term, if you approve, would be run through December 31st of 2017.
Trustees have any questions regarding Mr. Harper or the position that we're looking to ask him to continue in?
Mr. Chairman, I move that Mr. James E. Ed Harper continue on the Building Authority for LCCC. The Building Authority, no. Yes,
Yep.
the Building Authority Board of Directors. Thank you.
Second that motion.
We'll give Carol the second.
Discussion? I support this motion. I just have to pass on to you. I had an opportunity this morning to visit with Harry about the purpose of a building authority and why we should have a building authority when we can actually do these things and have tax exempt bonds and so forth. And he took it upon himself to get some more information to me, which I appreciate. Thank you very much. And without reviewing all of it, I think the key sentence in here, the lease revenue bonds issued by a governmental entity's building authority usually receives stronger interest from investors and lower bond interest rates compared to other capital facility lease financing options when financing capital construction projects. So I think that's a very good reason for having such an authority. So as I said, I support this motion.
Any other comments, questions? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next item is board reports, and for some strange reason, as board chair, I get to be first off on this in terms of committee roles. This is something that came up at our retreat, and I think it's a discussion that we started, and we probably won't finish it here tonight. I don't think we want to stay that long, but I think we also need to allow ourselves some time to think over some of these issues. First thing, if we look back at the December meeting, and at that meeting, we elected and appointed folks to be on different committees. One of those in particular is the Finance and Facilities, which has pretty much been a standing committee, but we don't have policy that really speaks to that. So one is, do we want to have that as a standing committee? And the second part of that, I think, is critical that we need to discuss is what role or function does that committee serve? So first of all, maybe let's take some comments about do we want to have F&F as a standing committee? Now, please, we do have some additional committees we might talk about. But let's kind of focus on just talking about F&F at this point, although we might see fit to comment a little bit for something else as it relates, but let's focus on the F&F. So first thing, do we want to make that a standing committee? And then we'll talk about the language. So comments on, do we want that as a standing committee?
Mr. Chairman, since I'm the treasurer and also the chairman of the F&F committee, I probably ought to say a couple words on this. I think that the reporting and the monitoring of our financial affairs on a monthly basis is incumbent upon us. Now, however we do that, if there's another way to do it other than
finance and facilities, that's fine. But I think right now we have a mechanism to achieve that particular monitoring and reporting. And also, looks like we're going to have some standing items on that agenda. Not only the financial reports, but reports on updates to the capital building projects and also any other facilities activities that are going on, which I will add to at the later time under the F&F report to add to what Dr. Joe has said about our buildings to this date. Also, it looks like we're at the request of our VP for Finance Administration, we're going to be looking at our investments and how our investments are going on kind of a quarterly basis. So I would speak to, yes, having that as a standing committee. I think that Dr. Joe made a comment at our retreat that the committee should have a specific charge and that not be a kind of a catch-all for various types of questions that we as trustees might bring up to the finance committee for the finance people to address and answer questions. So I think that's important for us to stay with our agenda. And if there are other areas of concern that we have as trustees, that we address them to our president, and he can then look at, okay, what ways should we follow up on it? So I guess with that, I'd support the standing committee for finance and facilities.
Okay. Brad? If you wish, you don't have to now. If you've got any comments or feelings about that.
I really don't, Mr. Chair. I don't have any specific comments of it. If it's something that's worked in the past, I feel like let's keep it going.
Mike, and I'm wondering, Bill, did you serve on F&F at one point?
No.
Brenda, you have, and Carol, you have, right?
Mr. Chair, I've never served on facilities and finance, but I want to support having it be a standing committee, if I may. When we, at the time that Greg Thomas was on the board and he formed committees, at that point, our original vision of committees would be that a committee would handle a specific issue. And then when that issue had been resolved or taken care of to the satisfaction of the board, that committee would be dissolved. The Facilities and Finance Committee, however, does not seem to be charged with a real specific thing. It seems to be more of a committee that is sort of the eyes and ears of the board and then reports back to the board. And so because there's no specific individual purpose for a specific issue, then, but it seems to be very valuable to us. I think that would support it being a permanent standing, or not a permanent committee, but a standing committee.
Appreciate those comments. Carol?
Yes, I support it being a standing committee. And when I came on this board, I think that most of the board members knew very little about the operation, the financial operation of this college. And I think it's been very valuable for the committee, not just the committee, but for the rest of the board to know more. And when we get into our budget time, I think Bill said this and he said it well. And I think last year was the year that we most understood how the budgeting process went. And part of that was, I think that many of us had attended the Finance and Facilities meeting all year long. And I think it asked good questions. So I support it.
Christine?
I agree.
Bill? So and I do. Having served on it, I very much agree it should be there. But the second part of the question is focus. And as Brenda pointed out a little bit, and Dr. Schaefer brought to our attention, we've kind of been ranging a little broader, if you would. We're like the wolf out of Yellowstone. I think we've gotten out to Oregon or somewhere in some cases. We do get a little far afield. So the focus, I think it would benefit us if we do focus, not to say we shouldn't reach out to some of these other areas, but we can do that through standing committee or ad hoc committees, which was really what I think Thomas was trying to do and
Yes.
Brenda back in those days. So just a few comments. Don gave us some insights there, but I would like to hear others with your comments about the function. I think Don laid out 2 points for us there in terms of financial reports, which seems very appropriate, but closely tied to that would be the master plan, the buildings, facilities. And that's where you guys back down the line, I think we're right on track when you put that together. So comments on those 2 points or others you might see as being the focus. And then I would like to hear from Dr. Schaefer on this.
Well, I would add, Mr. Chair, I would add the overview of the investment policy and also investment history and progress. That wouldn't be a monthly item. I think in our discussion at the Finance Committee, along with Carol and her people, we feel that probably maybe on a quarterly basis. So we would be reporting back on that as well.
So financial standing and investment, we would see as one package there that we'd look at. Other comments on other focus? I haven't heard anything on the buildings. I just wonder if you agree with that or don't.
I agree.
I agree.
Okay. Dr. Schaefer, you want to weigh in on the efforts of this group?
Give me a mic and watch out. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Actually, what I want to do is just draw your attention to the draft changes to the board committee's policy. It should be part of your materials. And first, I want to just make sure that you're comfortable with the language that's been inserted there, proposed language for standing committees. And I'll read it and just to have it out there. The board, upon appropriate action by the board as a body, may formally establish standing committees. Standing committees are intended to be created for an indefinite term and handle preparatory work on matters that will be considered by the board as a whole. Standing committee membership will be appointed by the board chairperson, and then it recognizes that we have one active and approved standing committee, which is the Facilities and Finance Committee. The space yet to be inserted is the purpose of that committee. So I want to make sure, one, that you're comfortable with the proposed language, that the use of a committee is really intended to allow you to gain broader insight, more information, greater detail, so that you can inform the board as a whole on their work. And I think that's something that's useful, because it does open up the doors always when you have a committee and you have access to staff and access to time and those things, that we can have wide-ranging conversations and to do that. And in general, I don't have concern with that, except for when it takes additional time and additional commitment to continue to follow those broader conversations down the road, to answer questions to do that. And so this really helps us focus then that the purpose of these committees is to help a group of trustees work with staff to become better educated, better informed, and essentially advise the board as a whole on matters before the board. That's why it's structured that way. From a Facilities and Finance Committee perspective, I think you're right on. In terms of the financial position of the campus, whether that's the financial statements, the investments, the budgetary process, it's a complex thing. Using that committee to look at that, understand it, especially as it comes to informing the board when you have to take action on financial matters, or to be able to demonstrate that you are upholding your fiduciary role as a board member and talking to your constituents, makes perfect sense. Facilities master planning, which is a requirement of the campus and of the board to do that and actually go through the master planning process, update it, understand it, and certainly approve different aspects of capital construction and renovation projects, makes perfect sense. So I think within the domain of those two areas, the Facilities and Finance Committee is completely appropriate, and that's really how I would suggest structuring the purpose of that committee.
Maybe we could ask Dr. Schaefer and our legal counsel to maybe work together to put that policy that we could look at. Would it be too early to look at it next meeting in February, or should we look at it the second meeting in February?
Mr. Chairman, Tara would love to do that.
I would.
I think we could certainly have a draft for your meeting, a working draft for your meeting in February. Well, the changes, you bet.
Mr. Chair, there's another charge that I would
suggest that the board considers the finance committee has, and that is that the finance committee would prepare a draft or a proposed board operating budget. I'm now in the process, along with the finance committee. Trustee Merrill is also on the finance committee, and we will be presenting our proposed from the finance committee the board operating budget to the board at the next meeting. And the reason we're doing this at the next meeting, I've been told by Jane Myrick that we must do this by, like everybody in the college has to do this by February 13, I believe. I hope I'm right on that. 15? Oh, I got a couple extra days. Okay. All right. But we will have a proposed board operating budget to present to this board at the next board meeting. So what I'm saying is, I think that would be part of the charge of the F&F committee.
Noted. We'll put it in there.
Okay.
And I appreciate that. Don talked about that. We discussed it a little bit at one point. And, you know, in the past, the treasurer has worked with Jane and other board members from time to time, trying to figure out what that budget ought to be. And I think the approach Don is recommending is really good, because I think that does force we as trustees, as a group, to be a little more involved in that. And so I really like that. I appreciate you bringing that forward and approaching it in that fashion. So.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to speak also on one of the purposes of the Facilities and Finance Committee. When it was first formed, a lot of the purpose behind it was, as Joe said, to gain insight into the financial workings of the college, but also about decisions made on buildings. And so one of the things I would like to see the Facilities and Finance Committee do is perhaps the folks on that committee could have some of that expertise about, why, Joe answered my question, but, like why are the prices of the building fluctuating so much? What kinds of changes are we looking at in the blueprints or the plans of those buildings, and why? And I think even though Joe's answers are satisfactory, I think it would be nice to have a board member's perspective on that, because we also are responsible to the community to be able to answer those questions. And so I think it would be valuable to me, at least, to have a couple of board members who could also say, I was there, I was a part of that discussion, and in board language, that this is what's going on, that we can have that understanding to take on to the community also. So that you can't put all those words into a policy, but maybe just kind of be knowledgeable or have insight into some of the decisions behind buildings and the planning and development of buildings. I don't know, Tara's a miracle worker. She could.
I shall do it.
Something wonderful.
I take your point well. I think because board members have different responsibilities, different stages where they're at, they can't always attend the F&F meeting. And so just as with other meetings and stuff, we can't all be there at the same time. So we really rely on each other to support with some peer information that sometimes the way it's said, not that Dr. Schaefer or anybody else is saying it so much differently, but sometimes the words click a little better and we understand that and what's gone on. So yeah, I think that's well understood. I was wondering, maybe I should leave the horse quietly, but I've got to ask you, Brenda, you brought up at the retreat perhaps the need for another standing committee with regards to academic or student services, or a combination, or by itself.
Yes.
And would you like to comment a little bit on that? Persuade us to go down that path?
Well, what brought it to mind is the meeting that we are having about the music program. and that there's some kind of a disconnect going on right now in the community between the music program at LCCC and community members that are involved in that music program or that are interested in it. And that communication gap has come to my attention. And so that's what led me to think about perhaps having a committee where we could look at maybe some of those kinds of relationships between the academics of the college and the community, and not just in the arts, even though that's where I belong and what I know, but that could also include math and science, the English programs, poetry programs, athletic programs, well, even though athletics is a completely different subject. But I was thinking about a standing committee that perhaps would bring questions from the community to Dr. Fierro, even though he thinks Vice President Hayes should help him out on a regular basis on the committee. But perhaps bring some of those concerns to Dr. Fierro and talk about what we're hearing in the community having to do with some of the academic programs at the college.
Do you, and for all of us, I'm wondering, I love the evolution of the F&F to where we've come to with that. I'm wondering if it wouldn't work well if we initially made this a task, an ad hoc committee. Mm-hmm. And if it arises to where we find that maybe we don't have many issues, but maybe it only needs to work bilaterally or bi-monthly, 4 times quarterly, 4 times a year, we might look at the issue of saying it's a standing committee, but we'll do it only 4 times a year that it'll report. Would you think that we could start with it as an ad hoc and then see how that evolves?
Mr. Chairman, I think that's a great idea.
Other people?
Sound good.
I'll work with you on trying to, the chair can establish the committee members, and I believe we can appoint that for an ad hoc. So I'll work with you on setting that up, and Dr. Schaefer and any of the board members who might be interested in serving that, please let me know, and or Brenda, and we'll see what we can do.
And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make sure that Dr. Fierro and Dr. Schaefer are comfortable with us doing that.
That's good. Good question. Yeah. Hi, Dr. Fierro.
I think it's a great idea. In fact, I don't want to shoot myself in the foot, but I would think like conversations like the ones we had today at dinner, they're great. That we can bring forward things that are happening or things that are planning and inform you ahead of time of what is going on, because any project that we roll out is not going to be perfect from the get-go, but if you are in the loop of what is happening and the feedback is coming, I think it's a great idea. And I don't know if it works as a talk or a standing, but either way, I think it's a great idea, and I have no problem including anyone in a conversation. And I enjoyed the presentation tonight, so I think if we have more of that, would be nice.
Yes, and Mr. Chairman, Dr. Fierro gave a great example, what we saw tonight about the A&B schedule. And yeah, that's another great example.
And Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the ad hoc approach or starting with a task focus committee may make a lot of sense. As many of you who were around during in-service week know, this spring specifically, there's a lot going on with program modifications and curriculum changes, with program review and this new model, program assessment. So there are some big things that are being undertaken this spring, and having a Board of Trustees committee just aware of and understanding the complexities behind those so that you can be informed. And as you hear the good, the bad from community and from inside, I think that would just be a place to start the focus just this spring alone. So that may be a very prudent and appropriate approach.
Yes, and then Mr. Chair, I like your idea of starting out ad hoc, and then we can see, are we really doing any good, or is it just kind of a waste of our time? And if we are doing good, then what direction should we take that committee, and what should we focus on, just like the FNF committee? So I think that's a good idea to start ad hoc first.
And Mr. Chair, I'd just like to reiterate the good that comes out of this. I think I got the chance to sit in with the student services group last week, and it was, even though I'm only a couple years removed, there's a lot of things happening right now that super informative. And I got to meet with, talk with a lot of people over the weekend, and really give them all the really fun things that are happening out here. So in the end, it's very beneficial, I think, for us. It was a big help for me.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Trustee Barker, that brings something, and we should probably ask Vice President Hay, do you see this as an opportunity to have a combined committee meeting? Because it isn't always so easy to separate the difference between what are academic activities and student service activities. In fact, one of the things we're finding is that the hardest work, but probably the most beneficial, is where we're working together. Would you see this as an opportunity to have it as an academic and student affairs committee? And before you shoot me in the foot, Judy, I guess I should ask what your perspective is on that.
I would welcome it too. I think it can't hurt us to, we're trying to be as open as we can all over campus, and including you more in there would be great fun.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think that's a great idea. I agree with Brad. I think that's a good idea because the two are so intertwined. And yeah, and that way too, we can help support some of the decisions of the college better too in the community. So it's a two. I see it as a very positive thing to do.
Appreciate the comments and the direction we've had. Now, again, for the ad hoc, we would not need to draft any policy for that, right?
Right.
Okay. We already have our policies on committees that allows us to do that. Okay. Any other comments on the committees at this point? I'll have one last thing I want to talk about a little bit, but is there anything else on what we've discussed so far? Okay, the last item I wanted to bring up here on part C there really speaks to our efforts back on December 3rd, I believe it was, when we as a board not only elected officers, but again, we placed people on committees. We use that term committee kind of loosely. We do have representation where you serve on the foundation. We have 3 people that were elected to the foundation, 2 people that were elected to the WACT. And we don't really have a formal place that we typically ask for reports. And Dr. Schaefer and Bill and I were talking a little bit about that, and kind of wonder if we shouldn't have a practice where in our reports we say board member reports, because in contrast to F&F or even the ad hoc committee, once we have it in place, those are board committees. But we're looking, the foundation is not a board committee. You're a representation on that board, then reporting back to us. And so I'd like to have standing reports, or again, maybe like we've done with some other groups, we could alternate those so we don't have intensive reports all the time. But I'm not sure everybody has, the foundation doesn't have meetings that frequently, so we wouldn't necessarily have reports that we'd be requesting all the time. But I guess the key I'm saying here is let's change our verbiage so you'd be aware of it if you're okay with it. Instead of saying board reports, we'd ask for board member reports. And that we all kind of, and there may be better verbiage for that yet, but that's what we've kind of bounced around. Any suggestions or comments?
I like the idea because it engages us a little bit more in reporting from our perspective, as Trustee Little would say. We depend a lot on Dr. Joe to bring us up to speed on what's happening at the foundation, what's happening with all the capital facilities, what's going on at the legislation, and so forth. And I think after he gives his report, and he'll have certain things that he wants to stress, we can then add to it when it comes to the member report for whatever one of those items that we have, whether it be WAC or the foundation or the advocacy committee from WAC, the National Legislative Committee, the Performing Arts Planning Task Force, the Flex Tech Planning Group or Construction Group, whatever we want to call it now. What do we call ourselves since we're in the process of getting close to being constructed?
Steering committee, the Flex Tech Steering Committee.
Okay, and also the University Student Center Steering Committee.
Correct.
Yeah, I think Trustee Little saying her comments earlier that it's appropriate and useful for us to have a board perspective report is right on ball.
Okay, we will move forward and try to develop the agenda accordingly. And if you have suggestions as we go along, or we've missed something in terms of a report that you think would be beneficial, please let Bill or I know, or Joe, so we can get that on the agenda. Or Vicky, she's.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to serve on the committee with Brenda.
Understood, good. We'll put you to work right away. Anything else for the good of board reports? Brenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. When we had committees last time, the issue came up about if there's three
Good
or
point.
more board members that it has to be noticed. So Vicky knows about this, but when we had committees before, someone would give to the newspaper when the different committees were meeting, and it avoided a lot of problems.
Yes, that does.
Appreciate that, especially after Tara's training for us here that we had. Vicky keeps us in terms of the F&F committee, which is a standing committee. And Carol, but after, with the ad hoc, as you point out, which is probably the only one at this point, which may then have additional folks, and we'll need to notice that. But it's also a good time. I would simply ask again and suggest that if you can make it, the F&F committees really are beneficial to the understanding, as Brenda indicated. And I'm sure the ad hoc, as we move forward with that, will be very helpful. Anything else? All right. We're now at that committee. If Trustee Erickson would give us the report.
Okay, Mr. Chair, the Finance Committee, which currently has myself as the chair and Trustee Merrill as also another member. We met last January 15th, which was Thursday. I remember that day because that was my birthday. So I was very quiet, I didn't let anybody know about it. And I'm not sensitive about my age. I was born in 1937. You figure it out. Okay. So
39.
Yes, it's my 39th anniversary of my 39th birthday. I happen to come from Jack Benny's town.
I think that's modern math.
Yeah. Well, and incidentally, we did review the three areas that have been identified for the kind of the agenda for the Finance and Facilities Committee. And that's the capital facilities projects, also the investments, and the overall financial report. Dr. Joe did a good job of bringing us up to speed on the struggle that both the University Student Center and the Flex Tech is having to stay within budget. And I think that struggle is a good one, because I think we would rather work through the tussles now and not be surprised down the road when the architect comes in with the final design plans and then goes out to bid, and we come in with bingo, 10, 15, 20% above what we have budget. So I think the struggle is a useful one. In addition to the facilities that Dr. Joe reported to us, the gateways are mostly complete now. And so I think all that's left really now is on the towers of the two gateway areas. We still have to have the
well, when I say the tower, the base, that would then allow a tower of LCCC. I'm not sure, is it going to be an LCCC and a vertical LCCC? Is that the current plan? Something like that?
So, yeah, Mr. Chairman, Trustee Erickson, something like that. I know that the architect that designed the gateways is working with the signage folks to come up with a complementary spire that would do that. I believe it will have elements of the eagle and the logoing. Exactly how the logoing works, I'm not quite sure. I've seen the final design for that yet.
Yeah, but that's mostly complete. It'll be, but probably this summer we'll have it done.
Mr. Chairman, could I speak, interrupt you? Don, I'm sorry. But I just would like to say we all know that this is not an unusual thing. The Botanic Gardens has gone through a terrible issue trying to compromise a thing in our own state capital now. The whole thing is in jeopardy, the whole plan, because of millions of dollars. So our problems are minor by comparison.
Thank you. The other comment would be on the wayfinding, which happens to be Trustee Merrill's area of constant badgering and appropriately. Okay. Well, I'm going to say badgering because why not just say what it was? And you do that well. You do that well.
I had a lot of progress.
Yes, right. Do you want to make a comment, relative to where we are with
The chair appreciates the courtesies extended.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. Well, the wayfinding is going very slowly. And the reason for it is, I think, understandable, and that is that we've got 2 new buildings coming on. We don't know what we're going to be calling these buildings. We want to do a prototype of one of the signs to see how it handles our climate and the winds and so forth. So there's going to be a prototype phase. And so, Trustee Merrill, you can continue your B word.
May I speak?
Yes.
Chairman Moses.
Would appreciate it.
Well, the reason I've been badgering is because we saw the original designs 2 years ago. And so there are still people wandering around out here. It's like Moses or something. And so they can't find the foundation. They can't find the CCI building. They can't find the CCC building. They don't know where anything is. And even people that come here often cannot find their way around. And I said this in the finance and facility meeting. I promised the foundation a sign, and now I feel like I have gone back on my promise, and maybe that wasn't a good promise, but the only thing that designates where the foundation office is the booth. So remember that, tell your friends. If they want to come out and give money, come to the booth. But it would be nice if we could get it. And at the time that we originally saw the book on signage, and Kevin Kilby was very much engaged in that conversation and cautioned us not to get signage that would be blown away or destroyed by the wind and the rain and the elements. So it seems quite slow. And I know that every day that passes that we do not do it, it will cost us more money. And that is weighing heavily on me because we are stewards of the money. So thank you.
Appreciate those comments, Trustee Merrill.
Thank you, Trustee Merrill. And as you can tell, she's very passionate about this. And I think that the staff is trying to address it as quickly as they can. And I'm not talking as if I happen to be a staff person. I'm just talking as another fellow board member. The other area is in the investments. An RFP went out. We had some responses, and the bank that was selected, or the advisor that was selected, was Interstate. And Interstate will be has entered into a 3-year contract with 3 1-year extensions. They made, according to the staff that was present at the FNF, they made an excellent presentation. The other respondents also made excellent presentations, but when it came down to the final selection, they felt that the Interstate Bank would be the best for us. We have anywhere from $5 to $7 million that is available for investing over. It fluctuates back and forth, and we're subject to state law. We can't go out and just invest our dollars in any high risk type of adventure. We have to basically go into various treasury notes, bonds, and the like. So the Interstate Bank is well aware of that, and I think we're going to get good results from them.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
All right, Don, what's the RFP for? I missed that.
The request for a proposal.
For what, for what?
Oh, that was for the advisors to deal with how we can best invest our monies so that we get the best return for our bucks.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry I didn't elaborate on that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions on that? Okay, then the final area is our review of the financial statements of the balance sheets and the current and the auxiliary financial sheets, such as the balance sheet and also the current budgets report. There's nothing really more to say about it this time around. Every one of us gets a copy of that. We did get comment that our tuition and fees are a bit lower as a result of the enrollment being down. And Dr. Schaefer sent to us by email here just this past week a headcount report over the last 10 years where we could see that the growth over the last 10 years and then how it really spiked after the Great Recession, if you will, of 2007, 2008, thereabouts. Now it's kind of, as I looked at it, kind of leveling off a little bit. The question that I have for the Finance Committee staff and also for Dr. Joe in a letter, an email that I sent to him is, when do we get concerned for our budget when our enrollment drops to a point that it would then affect our operating budget? And so that's going to be examined here, and we'll probably be addressing that particular question at a subsequent Finance and Facilities Committee meeting. I give Carol or Harry an opportunity if they have anything else to add.
No, but did you want an answer to your question?
Yes, please do.
And the question.
She'll repeat it.
Okay.
Oh, I know the question.
Oh, you did?
That's going to be her introduction.
Okay.
Trustee Mosier and trustees, the question was, when do we get concerned about the revenue picture? And we are monitoring the revenue picture from all fronts, not just based on the tuition, but what's happening in the state and the local appropriations as well. And we are noticing that the tuition is down, causing the tuition revenue, or the enrollment is down, causing the tuition revenue to be down. And we're waiting till the end of January is a good point for us to monitor whether we need to make adjustments in the budget. At the end of January, then we will have the information, the revenue information from the second semester, from spring semester. So that will give us a really good picture of where we might be heading. And so we'll have a better report for the Finance Committee after the January. And we will be taking, Jane's already been talking with different areas. We believe that right now we're fine for this year because we have a considerable amount of vacancy savings to cover the shortfall. And then also we'll the same things that we are concerned about in the current year we'll be looking at for the next year when we set the budget. And normally we come back with a budget amendment in June, but if we need to come back with one sooner than that, obviously we would do that. But for the current year, we believe we're okay.
Appreciate the answer to that question, and you're asking that, Don. Do you want to move passage of those?
Before I do that, I have one more comment I'd like to make. I really want to thank the board for electing me to be the treasurer, because I'm finding this to be a very delightful assignment. And it allows, as a treasurer, and you understand the budget and get into it, you really see the ins and outs of an organization. So I'm happy to be doing this, and I'm also happy to be able to give a report. And so given that, I'd like to make a motion to approve that would be the December, we're into the December 31, right? December 31 reports for the current fund budget and the auxiliary fund budget, and the balance sheets for those two as well.
Is there a second to that
I'll
motion?
second that motion.
Any other questions? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. The reports have been approved from the F&F. We appreciate your work on that and look forward to future reports from our new treasurer, who's doing a bang-up job there. Appreciate that. Additional items that we have tonight is anything that you folks have. I'm going to give a few things under new business that I have, but does anyone have anything additional here? Okay, next meetings. We know that we have our February 4th meeting and 18th for February. We'll have both those meetings in the month of February. And if you look in the blue highlighted, or the January and February special events, that leads you to some meetings that we'll talk about here in just a little bit, or very briefly here. I think I will be talking with Dr. Schaefer and Vicki and the folks in the staff area to work out our schedule, or has that been scheduled yet for the meet and greet, Vicki?
No, I've asked Jennifer Thompson with the staff senate to schedule that.
Okay.
And she is looking at over the lunch hour because of the staff's, how their time is
Flexibility.
calculated. Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can I?
Yes.
Question. Has a location for that meet and greet been selected?
No, but we're aware that you do not want that to be in the student lounge. So we're looking at someplace closed in, like maybe CCI or.
Well, I recommended that it be somewhere else than a student lounge, but I wouldn't go quite so hard as saying I didn't want it there. But would recommend it.
Let me badger Trustee Erickson and tell him that I will work with the folks in setting a place and contact you in terms of clarification.
Well, that comes as a result of the employees. The employees, I think, asked that they would like to have a place that would be just.
Including the student lounge in our possibility.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on, new business. Before I start with a couple of new business items, or I think I will start with these, take privilege of the chair, and then I'll come back and see if there's some others. First thing is in terms of ex officio member reports. We talked about those at the retreat, and I was, Dr. Schaefer told me to put Butch on the spot and give a report right now, but we were going to suggest that for next February 4th agenda, would you prefer to have it on both agendas during the month, or would you prefer one of those agendas during the month?
Preferably one.
Okay. 4th or the following one?
It doesn't matter at this point.
We'll do the first. We'll try
Whatever
that.
day the weather's better.
If it doesn't work.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. If the
We'll stay
weather's-
with the first. If it doesn't work for the February 4th, then we can always fall back for the better weather.
Okay.
You're here as our student officio, and again, we'd like to hear from you. And Again, these don't need to be lengthy. An hour is fine, but
I don't know if I'll come up with that.
but again, do you have a preference? Would you like to do both? Do you think that's, and again, we want to work with you and provide that opportunity for our ex officio members.
Probably just once would be fine.
Okay, let's try that. And maybe we should, would it be okay if we set you for the second one?
Yeah,
Okay.
fine.
Is that work for you, Vicki, in terms of the agenda, or would you like them both on the first meeting of the month?
For the way my mind tracks things, probably both of them on the first.
We'll do that. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, Mr. Chairman, try not to step too far out of my my span of authority here. One thing I might suggest, both for simplicity in setting the schedule as well, or the agenda, as well as for the flexibility for the trustees, especially for Butch, coming back and forth, we can put it on there as a standing item on your agenda. That would be ex officio updates, and if there's nothing to report, the ex officio members could say, well, I have nothing to report, and that way we have it as a consistent item. It's there. You may find that in some cases, Keenan may find he has something to report at both times, but I think what I heard at your retreat was there's really an opportunity to have the ex officio members have the opportunity to come to the mic and share some of the things that they're working on, or some of the things they're hearing, or even their perspective on the conversation of the board. So I might recommend we put it on as a standing item on the agenda, and if there's nothing to report, then no need to report.
I really appreciate those words, because I think that we want to make it beneficial to all parties and not make it as a have to task a monster, okay?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say I certainly think this meeting that they're going to have Friday will be of great interest to all of us.
Okay. Did you want to speak about that meeting?
No, I'm not going.
Okay.
They'll be the ones that are there. I'm talking about the one in Laramie.
Yes.
I hope you understood me.
No, I didn't. And I'm glad you clarified. Okay, next item I'd like to do is an update, legislative update from the Wyoming Association of Community College Trustees. Trustee Erickson and I are members of that every Friday, and all trustees, anyone's welcome to. There's a call-in number that you can call into and listen to the update regarding legislative action that's affecting the community colleges of which the trustees are trying to work with. And this past Friday, it's early in the session, but we have a couple of things that we're working with. First, and very important to us, is a bill regarding recalibration and setting up which you've heard Dr. Schaefer speak to before, in terms of changing the statute regarding funding for community colleges. We have 21 representatives who have signed up as sponsors of the bill. Normally, I think that's restricted to 15, but they have, the chair is on that. I shouldn't say chair, the title of that, majority leader.
Majority floor leader.
Rosemary Berger.
Yeah, is a sponsor on that, and she has the right to waive that. And so there are 21 in the House, and we have 9 senators who have signed on to the bill. So that looks pretty good. And Dr. Steve Bomber, our executive director on that, has sent out information and would recommend that any chance you get to say thanks or initiate an email out to those folks who've signed up as sponsor and let them know that we appreciate their support for that bill. If you have questions, you can contact Don or I, or of course, Dr. Schaefer, and we'd be happy to try to help you if you want to say something to, or send an email or something to a particular legislator who is supporting that. But we want to in advance keep them apprised that we appreciate their support for the community colleges.
Mr. Chair, if I may add, the local legislative co-sponsors, and I believe I have these correct. In the House, we have 4 from Laramie County, which would be Throne, Wilson, and both Zwanitzers. And then in the Senate, Floyd Escabel. And at this point, we feel it would be very useful for any of us who know any of those people to give them an email or a call and thanking them for co-sponsoring. As I understand it, I don't think this bill has been assigned to committee yet, but hopefully it's going to go to the Education Committee. But given the fact that it has ramifications down the road for money, it might go to appropriations, as I understand it. But I think what we're trying to do across the state is contact our local co-sponsors and just give them a thank you at this point. So if you have a chance to do it, that would be good.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I was listening to that report from Steve Bamer, and he said that he would get us a list of the email addresses.
It has come out.
out, and
Yes.
what day did it come out?
I think it came
Yesterday
out
morning.
yesterday. Yes.
Yesterday morning?
I don't believe you received it though.
I will be
Yeah,
happy to
8:30
forward
in
it
the
to you.
morning. And
Oh,
what
okay.
he recommended to
Don't know why
us
you
is
didn't
just
get it.
not to ask for anything, but just to say, thank you very much, we appreciate you supporting this bill. And so if we could all get it, then I would really appreciate it.
And that's House Bill 118, if I'm correct, right?
Correct.
I believe so. And Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, Sue Wilson, Representative Wilson is also a co-sponsor on that bill and has been very helpful in it. I think in the House, we're doing quite well. Certainly some outreach to Senator Pappas, to Senator Emmerich specifically, and supporting this will be something we'll be focusing on as well in the House. And I think we just have to spend some time with them, but believe they're strong supporters of the college.
Okay, then there's House Bill 114, which the association took a position on. As it's written, we took a position that we could not support the bill as written. At this point, our effort is to simply keep in mind what we want in terms of security for our students and the situation that we want for them. But without saying any more, I think it's pretty simple. The board is saying that because of the way the bill is written, and those of you who are interested, if you haven't and you want to see it, I can get the bill to you. It's House Bill 118. But that's
Now 114.
114, I'm sorry. I need to jump up. And the simple reason is the way it's written.
And Mr. Chair, I believe that we as a Board of Trustees, LCCC Board of Trustees, last legislative session had a report by Dr. Joe on a similar bill. And we discussed that, I think at the board level here, that we didn't think that was a good idea. And so this time around, you and I, as representatives of this board, continued to say, well, there isn't any reason for us to change a previous position. So and it was unanimous, by the way, from all the colleges. All the colleges unanimously agreed that there would be non-support for this particular bill as written.
Anything you want to add on either of those?
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I think you covered it quite well. Thank you both.
There's one element, there's not a bill yet, and that's for endowment. And that is being worked when and if that bill has sponsored and is developed, then we'll provide you information on it. That's for endowment. I think that's it on the legislative update for you. And the last thing I would remind you is a combination of WACT and Wyoming Community College Commission. You would be aware the WACT meeting is the 29th, and that's at Little America. There's a combination of trustee training, education, and then in the afternoon, we'll have a little more trustee education. No, I don't know the exact topic for that yet, but I believe it was something that was pulled from the Chicago area that Trustee Erickson and I attended. But there'll be a number of things there for educational purposes. Then the recognition of faculty, staff, foundation members, board, that will take place in the evening. And then following that, we'll have an opportunity to visit with legislators. So that 29th is busy, and then the next day, or excuse me, on the 29th, we have a 7 o'clock in the morning meeting. And just because you're not Don or I, you're not on the board for the state, you are most welcome to attend that meeting. All trustees can attend. That's not a closed meeting, so you're more than welcome to come. We would love to have you there.
So, Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, after spending a long night with legislators, you're encouraging the board members to attend the 7 a.m. meeting of the WAC board on the next day?
Yes. Yes.
When is the legislature, when do we spend time with the legislators? What
The
day?
evening of during the day?
No, is it the 28th?
It is,
No,
Mr. Chairman, Trustee Du Bois, it would be the afternoon of the 29th where you would go to the Hill and all the trustees that are here will actually go up to the Capitol.
Up to the,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
That's 29th afternoon.
Yes. So you get an early morning at 7 to 8:30 for the board meeting. Then you'll have education, and then you can go up to the Hill. We want you to. And then on the 30th, we have Wyoming Community College Commission meeting, which is here on LCCC's campus. I believe it's in CCI 130 and 129. And then after that, you might get some rest for the weekend, but we're not real sure.
And we're having lunch on that Friday too, aren't we?
I have not heard the specifics on that yet.
Okay, I saw it on something that Jennifer
Jennifer
sent
sent
out.
a
She
schedule.
did send it.
That
That
came
on
recently. I
Friday
missed that.
is LCCC trustees and commission lunch.
Okay, that's, usually they would meet with us in the evening, but because of the nature of this, evidently they've scheduled it for noon. I have not.
That's great.
I'll follow up on that.
Okay, and if that's the case, I want to encourage as many of us to attend as we can. It's noticed by the commission how many of us are present. Let me just put it that way.
It's really good to be there.
It's very good to be there.
It's a change. They used to be somewhat, let's say, a bit elusive in terms of being with the trustees. This is their effort to be with the trustees and have a chance to visit with us in a non-formal meeting.
Correct.
In that setting, so that we can speak to them and talk to them, and they can hear our concerns in that setting. So if you can make that watch good, thank you for bringing that up, because I was not aware of that.
Mr. Chairman, we'll confirm that as well. I think that came out with some of the materials that Naomi from the commission sent out today. So we'll take a look at that. And I don't know, I don't think it's inappropriate. I guess it would be up to you if it's appropriate, but that may be something that you might want to encourage your ex officio trustees to come join as well. I don't know what their schedule is
Totally
like
agree with
for lunch on that Friday,
Yes.
but it's important for them to see the full representation and hear. So I think we'll certainly send the invite if you can make it. That'd be great.
Good idea.
Any other new business? Being done.
I'll just say one more thing.
Yes, Trustee Dubois.
Well, I raised my hand and asked permission.
Sorry.
And you don't look at me. Others just speak out, but I like to raise my hand and follow Robert's rules of order.
Why did you look at me, Bill?
Reach over.
I just want to say Brenda and I, of course, have been here the longest. And when I think back, and I'm just saying this quickly, we were told that when I first came here, we were not to come to campus unless there was an event or we were invited. We no more would have sat with Jose and Judy and other people other than the president to discuss one little thing. And I think her idea of having, maybe this is where it's coming from, to talk with these people and to discuss with these people and learn what's going on. To me, it's just, what a fabulous change.
It's focused on students.
Thank
and I
you,
really
sir,
agree.
for what you've done to create that atmosphere, because it was not a pleasure.
Any public comment? I think I've been remiss this evening in asking for some earlier, so I will try to do a better job on that. Any comments from the public? I thought the photographer back there was
I make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned. Should I pump this out for Vicky?
Yeah.